It's the first taste of adversity for the Commanders this season. Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. Also, for you gold members, I apologize for not doing the private Zoom this week. We'll definitely get to one next week. There'll be a lot to talk about going into the next game, which of course is against the Dallas Cowboys. And the Commanders will go in there on a 2-game losing streak after losing to the Eagles here on Thursday night. And it was a game that in the end, it was close, but how close was it? And what does this say about the Commanders where they're at? And I think there's a lot of things to discuss from this one. And it's funny because, after they lost the Steelers last week, no loss is a good loss. However, what you saw is they went toe to toe with the Steelers. They were right there. Tonight, you kind of feel like it was almost a little bit like the Ravens game where you just felt like one team was better. And that was, of course, the Eagles. Now, the game Washington had the lead going in the fourth quarter. It's the second week in a row they've had the lead going in the fourth quarter and they couldn't maintain it. But I do think that the night overall highlighted that the Eagles right now are just a better team. And will it stay that way? We'll see. But I think it also, you look at what the Eagles have done, you look at that secondary, they've transformed their secondary in one offseason, getting 2 rookies in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean to go with Darius Slay. And I think that is now a very good secondary. So it's kind of a blueprint of what the Commanders can do with their defense going forward, whether it's with Marshawn Lattimore, whenever he's healthy and gets on the field, and then with whatever they do in the offseason to get another corner there. That's for the future. Tonight, though, what it showed is the Commanders just aren't there at this point. Can they get there? We'll see. But, I think this is still a playoff team. And I said this even after the Steelers game. I still think this is a good team. Nothing has changed in that regard. But what it does show is that they've played 2 really good teams back to back, and they're not quite there yet. Again, against the Steelers, I felt like one play and they win that game. Tonight, you just felt like the Eagles are just right now better. And my thought going into the game is they were better. How much better? And I thought Washington's offense would be better. And there's a lot to talk about from this one. So, and what I will say too, this feels like it's now back to I'm not going to say the honeymoon is over or anything like that. I don't think with the 2-game losing streak, you can overreact to this group. I think if they go out and lose to the Cowboys in, the next game out, or the Titans, I think that's when you start to say, because those are the teams they've been beating all year. And those are the teams they need to continue to beat to get to where they want to go, which of course is the postseason. Get there, see what happens. You'd like to do as an NFC East winner. The Eagles still have to play the Steelers. They still have to play the Ravens, and then they got to play in Washington. But you have to wonder, can they close that gap in that time? But the bottom line is just keep winning, beating the teams you should beat, get into that postseason, see what happens. But I will, like I said, this is not about the honeymoon being over for this group. But I do think what's interesting is that this goes back now it's a straight football discussions. It's not about like, hey, this is great or whatever. Now it's like, should you have gone for it on 4th and 2? Why isn't this better? What's going on with Jayden Daniels? So they're more just football related questions. It's not about just saying, isn't this fun? Now it's like, okay, the standards have been raised. Now, what are you going to do to stay at that level? Can you stay at that level? And I think that's one thing going forward. So, we're questioning big calls. Again, did you think that was the right call? Let me know in the comments. Would you have gone for it on 4th and 2, or would you have kicked the field goal? I'm going to talk about that in a minute because we heard some stuff in the locker room, and I also some stuff that I saw in rewatching the play that jumped out to me that I didn't realize when it first happened. And maybe you saw it on TV in the press box. I didn't realize it until later. And it's a second week in a row for one player in particular who seemed to not finish the block or do the right thing. But again, expectations have been raised here. And I think that's why tonight, I think the problem for me tonight was that the offense really couldn't get anything going. It's the second game in a row they've held under 300 yards. And last week, though, you felt like, man, this play or that play, this drop pass, this missed throw, this missed block, one of those plays is made, and that game is different. Tonight, didn't feel like that. There was no like, if you just make this play, now that 4th and 2, you can look at that. But do you have confidence that this defense would have stopped the Eagles thereafter? I don't. Not the way they were going at that point. However, you don't know, right? But I think the bottom line is offensively, you saw more missed chances last week, whereas tonight you just saw a defense that looks like, before rewatching the game, just shut them down for the most part and continues to make life, making Jayden Daniels look more human as a rookie. So this was not his best game. It was, you'd have to say it was his worst game of the season. Still some good things there. Still the guy you want back there. Still the guy who's going to be very good going forward. And it's not just on him, because there were issues to me with protection at times, and there was just an inability to get the ball to the receiver. So we're going to go through all that. But again, last week there were missed chances. Tonight it was just, I don't know that the chances were there. And I'll be curious to see when you go back and watch the All-22, how many chances were actually there down the field. Could he have gotten the ball down the field? Did they have time to get that down the field enough? I have some doubts on that, because the receivers were just non-existent tonight for them. And again, the one thing I'll say is they faced probably the two best defenses they're going to face this year. They faced them back to back. And so, what we've seen is that maybe the offense is very good, but against these top defenses, you probably need a little bit more. Maybe you need that one other playmaker, that one explosive guy. Whether it's, the Eagles have a Barkley, they have A.J. Brown, they have Devontae Smith. Do you have enough of that to compete against that kind of a defense right now? Because again, that defense is really good, and it's that secondary to me is really good. So you're going to have to find other ways to then move the ball and beat them. And, in this league, you can do it week to week, you can change, but that's going to be a tough task, because the Eagles just have looked really good over the last 6 weeks. But yeah, they made Washington just look. Consider that the Eagles also missed 2 field goals, could have had 32 points. They did not, but they could. But there are more missed opportunities for them than there was for Washington, for sure. Washington 3 for 12 on third downs, and the last 2 games combined 8 for 26. You can't. You look at why didn't they get over 300 yards? That's that number right there. You can't be that bad on third downs and sustain and be an effective offense. And so that's one of the areas that they were doing pretty well on. But again, when you're facing better defenses, you have to be better in all those areas. Daniel's not as sharp. He did say after the game that he said listen, nobody at this point of the year is going to be 100%, but he said he does feel good, and they're all, Dan Quinn said that the rib injury has been improving. And I talked to somebody before the game, a team official, who was like, yeah, he thought that Daniels was in a good spot after this week because of how it was improving. So if nothing else, going forward, this 10-day break will be good for him to continue that and to get back to where he was. But I have to give a lot of credit to the Eagles defense as well as the Steelers defense for making him look like this. I don't know that it's a matter of, the league has figured him out. I think you had 2 really good defenses that maybe this offense isn't quite equipped to go up against them just yet. And but again, last week, you're talking a couple throws, whether it's a drop, whether it's a couple missed throws, and they score more than 30 points against the Steelers. So that wouldn't have been too bad at all. I think this time off will help them for sure. And the other part is they've been taking away Daniel's legs. That's the one development too that has been a bit disappointing, because that's a big strength of his game, and it hasn't been there. He hasn't been able to get outside the pocket and to extend plays, or even just to pick up 6 or 7 yards. 18 yards scrambling the last 2 games combined. It was 0 last week, 18 tonight. So that's a number that's something that defense is doing. I think you faced 2 good fronts, and I think that played a role. I think the Steelers did an excellent job containing him in the pocket, and I think the Eagles did too. And that's a good front. But this is that's who you need to beat. So that's who you have to go against and beat, and to create opportunities against that kind of front. So yes, that's a good front, but I mean, again, that's the team you got to beat. So you're going to have to find a way to get that done. But they are doing a good job taking away his legs and containing him in the pocket. Now, Daniels can beat you from the pocket. He was sacked 3 times, and I did think on the first one, I kind of felt like he could have gotten rid of that ball right away. A couple of times, the other 2, I'm not so sure about that, right? And there are a couple of times there were issues on the line for sure, but they're taking away the legs, and that to me is something that why is that? And I think, again, the Steelers, you can see it tonight. I'm going to be interested to go back to watch that to see exactly what they were doing to take him away for sure. Anyways, let's get to the 4th down and 2, because I know that's the big play that everyone wants to talk about, because that was the play of the game, right? They're down, they're down a point. They're down, where was it? 12-10, whatever. Yeah. And you're down 12-10. You have a chance to go up 13-12. 8 minutes or so left in the game. Not a bad situation. It's 4th down and 2. But let's go back to 2nd 1 and then 3rd and 2, because they couldn't convert those plays, and that's why they were in that situation. And the 4th down and 2 to me was as much about execution as it was about the play call, and I'll explain that in a minute. So on 2nd down and 1, you had Andrew Wiley back in the game. And I told you, like, part of the thing that helped with him in there was his run blocking. Well, and he is a good run blocker, but he misses the block on Jalen Carter here. Carter stuffs a hole. Robinson gets a loss. 3rd down and 2, no push in the middle. Just stuffed, no push. That's why I thought, like, that's 2 plays in a row where that group couldn't get it done. You got to kick the field goal. That was my thinking, right? What I will say, the other part of me says, however, and this is what Dan Quinn, I think, went on too, because he even said, I asked him about this, and he said, yes, this was part of it, that the Eagles were moving the ball. So a field goal wasn't going to get it done. They were going to need more points than just 13 to win this game, but you would have taken the lead, and you make them go down now and score. And even if they get a touchdown, you still have a chance to do something and to win the game with a touchdown. But so again, my inclination was to kick it, but I understand why they're doing it. And I don't mind being aggressive. I really don't. And I think, you want to create a mindset with your team that you trust them, and I have faith that you're going to do this. So all those parts, I don't mind. And maybe I'm the big wuss, but I probably, like I said, my inclination would have been to kick it and take the points. But again, when I'm thinking that, my other thought was immediately when he did, it's like, but they're moving the ball. You're going to need more than just 3 points. And part of what Quinn was saying too is, like, not just to get the first down there, or just to, it wasn't just about going for a touchdown. It was also about trying to control the clock a little bit more and keep their defense, keep Philadelphia's offense off the field, because they're the ones that they were doing a lot of damage at that point, and definitely moving the ball. As you saw, the dam kind of broke after a certain point. So that's the setup to 4th and 2. Now, on 4th and 2, if you look at it, like, you see the play call, I actually think it's going to work. But here's the problem. So first of all, Sam Cosmi somebody goes the wrong way, and this is what you see. So you see Biotish and Wiley pulling around the right end. You see Brandon Coleman, the left tackle, starting to pull to the right. You see Cosmi going to his left. You don't see, and you could see him kind of getting lost, like that he went the wrong way. And that's where Jalen Carter comes through, his vacated gap. That gap wasn't supposed to be vacated, because it was, there's 2 things. One, as Cosmi goes left, he kind of bumps into Jayden as he's pulling away from the center, but Daniels bobbles a snap. He didn't bobble it because of Cosmi, but Cosmi kind of bumps him. And more than that, what really impacted the play was vacating that gap, and then Jalen Carter shooting through and forcing Daniels to go much wider. That was a big problem. And that, to me, just that completely changes the play, because if you don't have to go that wide, they have it blocked. And I think there's a pretty good chance he picks it up. Now, once you have to go around that far, you've almost got no chance, because they're in pursuit, and it's now it becomes a long way to go in that situation. We did not talk to Cosmi afterwards. He left without talking. And I know one reporter saw him and just said he's gone. He's going to the bus. So I think he just went in there, didn't even shower or anything, just went to the bus. Cosmi's a great competitor. He's a very good guard. But if when you look at what happened, all guys are going one way, he was going another. And I think this probably chafes him too, because last week against the Steelers on that quarterback draw late in the game, he said, he goes, I'm going to start with myself when I'm looking at the film, and I could have made a better block in that play because I knew the guy was going to do this. I had to set it this way, and I didn't. So, and that quarterback draw, if that hits, that's a long ass gain. And you're either in field goal range or with a short field goal to win the game, or maybe Jayden Daniels makes one guy miss and he gets to the end zone. So that was a crucial play. And I know, like, knowing Cosme, knowing how he takes this, that's going to bother the heck out of him, all those plays. But that 4th down and 2, because at the end of the play, you could kind of tell there was nowhere for him to block, and it was just a bad play. So the execution was the massive part of it. The call, to me, was when you watch the play call was a good one. It's there, but you're not anticipating the quarterback bobbling the snap. Now, Daniel said he felt like maybe the snap was a little bit off because he needed to call the cadence louder. When you rewatch it, I don't think it didn't look like the snap was off. And Biadasz, said that, to him, there was nothing off with it. So I think when guys watch the play, they'll see exactly what happened. But maybe there was a little bit of that. I don't know, because maybe it looked like maybe Daniels is maybe part of it. It could be for Daniels that maybe the reason why he bobbled it is because he's pulling away before the ball is coming, because he's thinking the ball is coming. So it's all of that. But again, the blocking, the execution overall was poor, and you can't win games like this with that kind of execution in a crucial situation. The funny thing is, like, they've been really good in those fourth down situations. They were 11 for 11 going until they missed against the Steelers last week. And, but they practice those all the time. So they are a good situational football team in that area, but not on that play. And I think that's what's going to be disappointing, especially for Cosme, for sure. And we even somebody asked Zach Ertz about going for it. Like Daniels was asked about, and of course he's going to express confidence to go for it. Players are going to want to go for it. And I know, like Ertz said, he had no comment on it, but he said, I trust the staff. Like that's their decision making. You trust them. You're going to just do what they ask you to do, and you go. And players want that confidence. I don't think any player is going to say, yeah, we should have kicked the field goal, because they want to be the ones in control. They want that. They want that responsibility. Now, maybe in hindsight, they're going to think that because it didn't work. However, again, the play call to me was a good play call, but the execution was just bad. And then the other problem here tonight, folks, the receivers were not involved at all. 4 catches for 28 yards. McLaurin did not get targeted until the 3rd quarter. It's only the 2nd time in his career that he wasn't targeted in the first half. 1 catch for 10 yards. So what was going on? Well, the Eagles they certainly mixed man and zone. There are a number of times where, I know the coach is always going to say they got to go back and watch the film because they want to have good detail. I know Daniel said it looked like their plan was to take him away. I do remember seeing one time where it was on the 4th down drive, that drive that resulted in the 4th and 2, which actually was a good drive to that point. There was a play in there where maybe it highlights a little bit what they're doing, but there was the Zach Braun, the linebacker, he drops into coverage. You have McLaurin, you have on the same side as Quinyon Mitchell. Mitchell has him over the top, but it looks like Braun, he drops to an area to take away the underneath part for McLaurin. So maybe there was some of that going on. Again, I have to go back and watch it because I'm not focusing on just one guy, but I do know that they're a really good secondary, and that plays a part in it. They had multiple guys, I think, that could cover him. They had Cooper DeJean on him a couple of times. In fact, the one catch that McLaurin had, it was DeJean was on him. They had McLaurin lined up inside, and that's why I had him. But created a matchup for him. But I was also a little bit disappointed that they didn't find ways to get him the ball or the other receivers. Again, it wasn't just McLaurin. So this isn't just about them taking McLaurin away. They took the entire receiver group away. So maybe, when you look at like what you need more in the offseason, get another guy who's in there who can be explosive, and maybe you can do something more with him against these kind of in this kind of a situation. But they took the receiving core away. For a long time, there was at one point Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson accounted for 150 of their 157 yards. That is not a recipe for an explosive offense. The tight ends and the running backs dominated the yardage total for Washington. That's not a recipe for an explosive offense. So when you can't get the ball to the receivers for whatever reason, again, this is something I want to go back and watch because you need to see the all 22 for that. If you can't get the ball to them, you're not going to have an explosive offense. You're going to be forced to go on long drives, and they couldn't get them involved. And, that's a problem. And they didn't create anything for them as well. And, you'd like to see maybe something more from McLaurin just to get him more involved. Like, get something for him to get him someplace, because we all know this team is different when McLaurin touches the ball. If he's not getting the ball, and listen, we talked to McLaurin afterwards, he's in a far better state of mind than he would have been if this were last year and you fall to 4-6 because you're not getting the ball. Then you're pissed. Tonight, he's obviously mad. You'd be frustrated, but I think he knows that, first of all, he's got a good connection with the quarterback, and he knows that the coaching staff puts a lot of trust in him. So this isn't like in the past, but we all know that McLaurin needs to be involved for this team, and especially in games like this, because he's your proven guy, and they just couldn't find him. Again, 2 targets overall is just not going to cut it. And that's where sometimes there were some throws to Noah Brown that were just a little bit off. There was the interception by Daniels just late in the game. Just a tough night overall. The run game was all right for a little bit, but you need to get more first downs to keep that thing going, and they just couldn't do it. And I'll be curious to see what they do with Daniels going forward to get his legs more involved if you want to do that. And there are a couple of times where, I think he's definitely a fast guy, and he's quick. He's got some good elusiveness in the pocket, but he's not going to be a shifty guy and just kind of juke you like that. It's going to be get out there and go. And he just was unable to do that. So defensively, I felt like they did a solid job for much of the game. I mean, 6 points going into the fourth quarter. And even if you get those 2 field goals, 12 points going into the fourth quarter is a pretty damn good night for this group against that offense. That's a really good offense because they have so many ways they can hurt you with you got good receivers, you have good tight end, you have a really good running back and a quarterback who's multidimensional and continues to make it work. There are definitely times where, and this is where the shame of it is for the offense, they had some good field position that they did not take advantage of at times. And if you could have gotten up by another score against them and put the onus on Jalen Hurts to beat you, but they couldn't do that. And they allowed, Saquon Barkley to, obviously to stay a factor. And then Barkley, at some point, you keep giving him the ball, he's going to break one, and he got 2. So, that becomes a problem, and that's where the defense wears down. They have not been able to stop the run all year. That was my number one concern coming in. Here's the hard part for them. You want to take that run away. So but can you put 8 guys in the box consistently against this group? Because now you have guys on the outside covering one-on-one against some really good receivers. It makes for a tough dilemma. You get a guy like Lattimore out there, and he's got to get out there. I have no clue when he's going to be out there. And yes, I've talked a little bit about this, but not enough, that with the hamstring, and he's got a history of hamstring issues. So that you hope for Washington's sake that doesn't rear itself too much over here. He's had some really good years with the Saints where that hasn't been an issue. So, but the years where it has, you want to make sure it doesn't linger. So you got to be careful before you get them out there. So, but they will be helped by that because now you can do some more of those 8-man boxes because you have this guy who can cover in that situation. So I felt like, Sam still did a pretty good job. I mean, the Eagles receivers were not the story here. It was Saquon Barkley. And then Jalen Hurts hurt them with his legs too, with a couple key runs in situations to pick up first downs. That was the difference. And it was Barkley who's had 146 yards. So, but the receivers like, Smith and AJ Brown did not combine for 100 yards receiving. Would you take that? Hell yeah. So they ended up taking those guys away, but Barkley hurt them. And that's when you're going to 2 deep, you're going to give up those yards, but you need that front to play them better and get off blocks and make plays. I mean, listen, it wasn't like the Eagles were always going to 8-man boxes and these guys aren't breaking those runs off them because they have guys like Jalen Carter up front. You haven't seen the Pro Bowl stuff from Daron Payne this year. You see it on flashes, but not consistently enough. So they need to get better production up front overall and, stopping the run. And it's not just the front, but it's all those groups. But you got to get off those, they've got to find a way to get better against run. At this point in the year, you have to ask, can they do it? Because they haven't done it yet. And so that to me is a big problem going forward because I think you can improve the pass defense. And if you can play different coverages off that, maybe you can get better against the run, but they haven't shown yet that they can. And I felt like Chin and Luvu were really, really active. And where Luvu was making plays was up near the line of scrimmage a lot of times. They had tackles for loss. I felt like Chin continues to get better each week. And I like how Mike Sanders still competes. Now he gave up one slant to AJ Brown. Okay, that's not the best matchup for him. Like that's a big guy. He's a small guy going up against not necessarily a tall receiver, a big physical receiver. And I felt like at times he did a really good job. He covered him in the end zone a couple of times. wasn't open. And I think, if you want to pick out some bright spots, like he's a bright spot because he continues to show up and compete, and you like to have more guys. You have a lot of guys like that here. So, but again, the run defense, it's got to get better, and we'll get more into that as we go forward. But this is a good test now. And this is one of the things that players talked about afterwards. They talk a lot, as Terry McLaurin said, like, I asked him about, like, this is the first real adversity that they're going to face this year, right? So what's that going to do to your quote unquote brotherhood? They've talked a lot about that bond. This is when it's going to be tested. So, this is when you find out how, and I do believe this is a very tight team. Like, I don't worry about this team, like somehow splintering or having issues. I don't feel like that's what this locker room is about. I feel like they're going to respond very well to this because that's the kind of guys they have. The last 2 weeks, it's all about, to me, facing better teams. And tonight, the Eagles are just better than where Washington is at. Could they have pulled it out? Yes. It was not about Washington being banged up. It's about them. Are they good enough to beat the Eagles? And tonight, the answer was no. Last week, could have beaten the Steelers. But this is where adversity starts. And it's funny because guys like Dan Quinn, they're going, you embrace the situation you're in. So right now you're in an adverse situation. Embrace it. And I say that because, like, you can like take it and use it to your, to build off of, right? Okay, you're going through this. How are you going to respond? That's what they have to decide. And I think it's going to be a positive response because it's just who they are and who they've been. I don't think it's a matter like for those of you who are older, back in 2000, when they got off to a 6-2 start, and that was the year where they had the Deons and Mark Carey and Bruce Smith and all those guys, the star-studded lineup and all these guys coming in, and they were 6-2. And then they lost a couple of games and they just couldn't recover. I remember talking to Larry Centers. If you remember him, fullback back in the day, it's like, you guys were 6-2. You had, looked like you had good chemistry. He said, you don't know what you have until you get punched in the mouth. Well, they've been punched in the mouth now, but I haven't seen a tighter group than this one. So I think they're going to I don't worry about that. And that's what Terry McLaurin said. It's easy to talk about brotherhood when you're going well. Now is when it's going to be tested. So a number of guys said that, but I do believe that the way this group is, the mindset they've had and shown, and the tightness that they have as a team and a group, I think they will respond well. And it helps that you're going to now play a couple teams that are not at the same level. You want to work up to win one of these games, right? If you're at that level, you find a way to win one of these games. So can you get there? Can you get there this year? I think, is it tough? Yes. But let's see what it looks like if and when they get Lattimore in there, and then see, what happens with the pass game, et cetera. You're going to face defenses this good all the time. Well, no. And so they've already faced 3 of the top run defenses here in Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and now Philadelphia. So you're going to have situations coming up where you're going to be able to do more of your offense, allowing Daniels to be more of himself. You give him 10 days now to heal more of the, just to get more physically sound, and you're not going to be fully sound, but you can feel a little bit better, a little bit more fresh, get a couple games, get to the bye, and then sprint to the finish. So anyways, tough night here in Philadelphia. All is not lost. Like, this is still, to me, a good team. I still think they're going to make the playoffs at this point. It's just that right now they're not ready to beat the Eagles and in the NFC East. So we'll see if that's still the case in about 5 or 6 weeks when they play them again. Anyways, that's it for me from Philadelphia. I'll be back on Monday with my pal Nikki Javala from the Washington Post, just kind of going over the state of the Commanders, where are they at, and what does it look like moving forward. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.